Why the Galactic graveyard only has one name on every Tombstone human. Part 1. The Discovery. Commander Valerie Briggs had seen a lot of weird stuff during her 10 years in the United Earth Space Force. Derelict ships drifting through the void. Colonies gone dark from mysterious infections. That one time an entire research station got turned inside out by a physics experiment gone wrong. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared her for this. "Commander, we've decrypted another section of the alien database," Lieutenant Maxwell called from his station, his voice carrying the particular strain of someone who's just seen something they can't unsee. "You're really going to want to look at this." Briggs sighed and pushed off from her command chair, floating across the bridge of the U.S. Tenacity toward Maxwell's terminal. They'd stumbled across the abandoned alien outpost on what should have been a routine survey mission of the Proxima Centauri system. Earth's first confirmed alien structure, a magnificent discovery that would change human history forever. If only they could figure out why the damn thing was abandoned. "What have you got for me, Lieutenant?" Briggs asked, grabbing a handrail to stabilize herself behind Maxwell's chair. "It's a database entry labeled Galactic Graveyard. Some kind of memorial record." Maxwell's fingers danced across his console. "I've translated most of it, but, well, see for yourself." The screen filled with alien text, translated into blocky English. As Briggs read, her eyebrows climbed steadily higher until they threatened to disappear into her hairline. "This can't be right," she muttered. "Run it through the translator again." Maxwell shook his head. "Already did. 3 times. The database contained records of approximately 2,000 extinct species across the galaxy. Species that had been wiped out by various calamities spanning back millions of years. Wars, plagues, supernovae, singularity collapses, and under cause of extinction for every single one. Human, Briggs read aloud. Human, human, human again. She scrolled through entry after entry. "That's impossible. We literally just figured out how to break light speed 10 years ago." "There's more," Maxwell said, switching to another screen. "It looks like we're kind of infamous out there." The next entry was something called the Galactic Council's Most Wanted Species. A list presumably covering the entire Milky Way. Number 1, with a bullet, humans. The description read only, approach with extreme caution. If encountered, retreat and notify council authorities immediately. "Great," Briggs said, pushing away from the console. "Our first contact with alien civilization, and apparently we're already the galaxy's boogeyman." She rubbed her temples. "And we haven't even met anybody yet." The ship's comms crackled. "Commander," came the voice of the sensor officer. "We've got an incoming vessel. Big one. Definitely not human design." Briggs straightened her uniform. "Well, looks like we're about to make some new friends. Or meet our alleged victims." She squared her shoulders. "Battle stations, just in case. And somebody get me the diplomatic first contact package. Let's hope they're in a talking mood." As the massive alien ship approached, all gleaming curves and softly pulsing lights, Briggs couldn't help but wonder, what the hell had humans supposedly done to earn such a fearsome reputation? And more importantly, how were they going to explain that it wasn't them? Part 2, the invitation. It turned out that explaining wasn't necessary. The aliens already knew. "Greetings, representatives of Earth," said Ambassador Krex, a tall, spindly being with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors with his mood, currently a nervous shade of mauve. "The Galactic Council extends its formal welcome to your species." They stood in what Briggs presumed was some kind of reception hall aboard the alien vessel, which called itself the Harmonious Convergence. Beside Krex stood Council Head Nor 7, a floating orb surrounded by holographic displays that occasionally blinked in patterns Briggs couldn't begin to understand. Behind them, a dozen other alien species watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright terror. "Thank you for your welcome," replied Admiral Zhang, the highest-ranking officer on the tenacity and nominal head of their hastily assembled diplomatic team. "We're honored to make your acquaintance and hope this marks the beginning of peaceful relations between our worlds." Krex's skin briefly flashed crimson. Yes, peace. That would be unprecedented. An awkward silence fell over the gathering. One of the aliens in the back, something like a cross between a jellyfish and a filing cabinet, quietly oozed toward the exit. "Perhaps," Noor 7 finally said, its voice coming from everywhere and nowhere, "we should address the elephant in the room." "The what?" Krex asked, alarmed. "There's an Earth elephant here?" "Where?" His color shifted to panic yellow as he scanned the room. "It's just an expression," Admiral Zhang explained hastily. "It means discussing an obvious problem nobody wants to mention." "Ah." Krex relaxed slightly, fading back to mauve. "Of course. Your species' propensity for bizarre metaphors is well documented in our xenobiological files." Briggs stepped forward. "I think what Council Head Noor 7 means is that we should discuss why every alien species seems terrified of humans, despite the fact that we've never left our solar system until recently." "Never left?" Krex exchanged a look with Noor 7. "Oh, I see. So that's your position." "It's not a position," Briggs said, feeling her patience wearing thin. "It's a fact." The aliens in the room all made various sounds and gestures that the translation software interpreted as the equivalent of uncomfortable throat clearing. "Perhaps," said Noor 7 diplomatically, "we should continue this discussion after you've had time to rest and acclimate. The Council formally invites a human delegation to attend our next assembly on the Nexus Station. There we can discuss history in more detail." "And your admission to the galactic community," added Krex quickly, "which we are all very excited about." The jellyfish filing cabinet made a sound like a deflating balloon. After the initial reception, the human delegation was shown to their quarters. Briggs found herself assigned a guide, a stocky reptilian alien named Torque, who walked on two legs and had a perpetually worried expression. "Is your accommodation satisfactory, Commander Human Briggs?" Torque asked, hovering at the doorway as if afraid to enter. "Just Briggs is fine, and yes, it's great, thanks." She gestured at the strange gel-like bed. "Though I'm not entirely sure how to use this." "You just lie on it?" Torque seemed confused by the question. "Right, of course," Briggs nodded. "So, Torque, maybe you can help me understand something. Why exactly is everyone so terrified of humans?" Torque's scales rippled in what might have been surprise. "You really don't know? The planet cracking? The star dimming? The collapse of the Andromeda Alliance? None of those things ring a bell, no. The temporal incursion of the Seventh Era? The Void Plague? The Great Devouring?" With each suggestion, Torque's voice rose higher in pitch. Briggs shook her head. "Look, the furthest humans have ever gone is to check out Alpha Centauri. We literally just figured out FTL travel. Whatever all those disasters were, we had nothing to do with them." Torque studied her with 6 blinking eyes. "That is not what our historical records indicate." "Well, your records are wrong. The Council has extensive documentation." "Which I'd love to see," Briggs interrupted. "Is there some kind of library or archive I could access?" Torque's scales changed to a deeper green. "The archives are restricted." "Of course they are," Briggs sighed. "Look, if we're going to clear up this misunderstanding, I need to see what evidence you have against us." Torque hesitated, all 6 eyes blinking in different patterns. "The archives are restricted," he repeated, then added in a lower voice, "but I happen to know a back entrance." Meet me in the hydroponics bay after the third sleep cycle. As he scurried away, Briggs couldn't help but wonder what she was getting herself into. One thing was certain: she was going to get to the bottom of why the entire galaxy thought humans were some kind of cosmic serial killers. And why, despite their apparent fear, the Council seemed so eager to bring humanity into the fold. Part 3. The Investigation. The hydroponics bay was eerily beautiful, illuminated by bioluminescent plants that pulsed in slow, hypnotic rhythms. Briggs checked her watch. Third sleep cycle had ended 10 minutes ago, and still no sign of Commander Human Briggs. Came a harsh whisper from behind a cluster of floating orb fruits. Briggs jumped, barely stifling a yelp. Just Briggs, she corrected automatically. And don't sneak up on me like that. Apologies, Torque said, emerging from his hiding spot. We must be cautious. The archives are technically open to all Council species, but certain sections, well, let's just say they're kept under what you might call classified status. And the sections about humans? Maximum restriction. Torque motioned for her to follow as he slipped through a narrow passage between towering red ferns. Only archive masters and council elders are supposed to access those records. So how are we getting in? Torque paused at a seemingly ordinary wall and pressed his palm against it in a complex pattern. I used to work in records maintenance. They never deactivated my credentials when I transferred to diplomatic services. The wall shimmered and dissolved, revealing a dark corridor beyond. An oversight I'm now exploiting to commit what could technically be considered treason. Your enthusiasm is overwhelming, Briggs muttered as she followed him inside. The archives were not what she expected. Rather than the sterile databanks she'd imagined, the room they entered was vast and organic-looking. Living crystals grew from the floors and ceilings, each containing what appeared to be swirling galaxies of information. The collective memory, Torque explained, approaching a central crystal formation. Each crystal contained centuries of historical records from across the galaxy. He placed his hand on the nearest crystal and closed his eyes. After a moment, it glowed brighter, and then projected a three-dimensional image above them: star charts, text in dozens of alien languages, and images that shifted too quickly for Briggs to follow. I'm searching for the human extinction files, Torque said, eyes still closed. There are thousands of them. That's impossible, Briggs insisted. We've never even... Here, Torque interrupted, opening his eyes. The projection stabilized, showing what appeared to be the wreckage of an entire solar system. The destruction of Kef Varik, 12,000 galactic standard years ago. An entire system reduced to rubble. He gestured, and the image zoomed in on a piece of debris. Analysis revealed traces of human quantum signatures. That's absurd. 12,000 years ago, humans were still figuring out agriculture. Torque blinked. Perhaps your species has a selective memory. Or someone's framing us. Briggs stepped closer to the projection. Show me more. For the next hour, Torque displayed extinction event after extinction event, each attributed to human intervention. The methods varied wildly: engineered supernovae, targeted pathogenic weapons, dimensional rifts, gravity weapons, time distortions, reality rewriting, and more abstract concepts the translator couldn't properly convey. This doesn't make any sense, Briggs said, after viewing a particularly implausible scenario involving something called consciousness inversion. Half these technologies sound physically impossible, and the other half we definitely don't have. Yet the evidence is circumstantial at best, fabricated at worst. Briggs crossed her arms. Think about it, Torque. Does it really make sense that a single species would be responsible for every major catastrophe in galactic history? Torque's scales rippled thoughtfully. When you put it that way, it does seem statistically unlikely. And look at the time frame. According to these records, humans have been terrorizing the galaxy for millions of years. But we've only been a spacefaring civilization for less than a century, and we literally just developed FTL technology. Perhaps you're time travelers? Torque suggested weakly. Briggs rolled her eyes. If we had time travel, don't you think we'd have used it to prevent all our own disasters? Earth history is basically one catastrophe after another. Then how do you explain Torque began, but was interrupted by a loud alarm? The crystal under his hand flashed red. Oh no, we've triggered a security protocol. What does that mean? It means, came a new voice from the entrance, that you're both in very serious trouble. They turned to see Ambassador Krex standing in the doorway, his skin a furious crimson. Behind him stood 4 armored guards of various species, all looking equally displeased. Ambassador, Briggs said, straightening up. I can explain. I'm sure you can, Commander. Krex cut her off. Humans always have explanations, justifications, excuses. He stepped into the room, the guards fanning out behind him. But the time for deception is over. The Council has voted. Your kind will answer for their crimes, all of them. Part 4. The Confrontation. The Council chamber was imposing by design, a vast, circular room with tiered seating that rose so high Briggs couldn't see the uppermost rows. Representatives from hundreds of alien species filled the seats, their murmuring creating a constant background hum like an agitated beehive. Admiral Zong stood beside Briggs at the center of the floor, surrounded by the rest of the human delegation. They'd been brought here directly from their quarters, some still in their sleepwear and positioned in what was clearly meant to be a defendant's position. Council Head Nor 7 floated at the highest visible tier, its holographic displays flickering rapidly as it called the assembly to order. Representatives of Earth, it began, its voice echoing throughout the chamber. You stand before the Galactic Council accused of crimes spanning millennia. How do you plead? Before we answer, Admiral Zhang said carefully, we'd like to understand exactly what we're being accused of. A ripple of what might have been laughter spread through the assembly. Ambassador Krex, now taking a position on a mid-level platform, gestured dramatically. Perhaps a demonstration is in order. He tapped a control panel, and the chamber darkened. Above them, the holographic display materialized, showing a beautiful ringed planet. Elthoria, Krex announced. Home to the Elthori, a peaceful species known for their artistic achievements and philosophical advances. Population, 8.3 billion. He paused for effect, until this. The hologram shifted, showing the same planet racked by massive explosions that tore through its crust. Within moments, the entire world cracked apart like an egg, its fragments scattering into space. This occurred 43,000 standard years ago, Krex continued. Analysis of the residual energy signature clearly indicates human weapons technology. That's impossible, Briggs protested. 43,000 years ago, humans were still living in caves. A convenient claim. Krex's skin swirled with skeptical patterns. And yet, we have the evidence. He tapped the console again. Another planet appeared. Zexer Prime, 127,000 years ago. Observe. This time, the hologram showed a world that simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was replaced by empty space. Complete dimensional displacement, Krex explained. A human specialty, according to our records. For the next 20 minutes, Krex presented a slideshow of cosmic horrors, planets destroyed, stars extinguished, entire species wiped from existence, all supposedly at human hands. The methods grew increasingly outlandish: reality reconfiguration, temporal looping, consciousness harvesting, and something called existential subtraction that even the translator couldn't properly explain. This is absurd, Zhang finally interrupted. We don't have any of these capabilities. We literally just figured out how to travel faster than light. So you claim, Nor 7 responded. Yet the evidence spans thousands of worlds over millions of years. The energy signatures match. The methodology matches. And most tellingly, it paused dramatically. Survivors of these events, when there were any, all described the same thing: bipedal beings matching human physiological patterns. Briggs stepped forward. May I speak? After a moment's hesitation, Nor 7 inclined its orb-like body in what might have been a nod. I've had a chance to review some of these records, Briggs said, nodding toward Torque, who shrank in his seat. And I have questions. First, isn't it strange that a single species would be responsible for every major catastrophe in galactic history? That seems statistically unlikely, to say the least. Muttering spread through the assembly. Second, she continued, the time frame makes no sense. According to your own records, humans have been terrorizing the galaxy for millions of years. But our species has only existed in its current form for about 300,000 years, and we've only been a spacefaring civilization for less than a century. Time travel began a counselor from one of the upper tiers. We don't have time travel, Zhang cut in. If we did, don't you think we'd have used it to prevent our own disasters? Earth history is essentially one catastrophe after another. And third, Briggs pressed on, many of these technologies you're describing violate the laws of physics as we understand them. Existential subtraction, consciousness harvesting. We don't even know what these terms mean, let alone how to weaponize them. The chamber erupted in chaotic discussion. Various counselors shouted questions or accusations, their translation coming through Briggs's earpiece as a jumble of overlapping voices. Finally, Nor 7 restored order. Your denials are noted, Commander, but they contradict millennia of carefully preserved evidence, unless you can provide an alternative explanation for these events. Actually, came a voice from the entrance to the chamber. I believe I can. All heads turned to see Torque standing in the doorway, clutching what appeared to be a crystal similar to those in the archive. Junior Diplomatic Liaison Torque, Nor 7 acknowledged, its tone cooling noticeably. This council is in session. You are not authorized to. I've found something in the archives, Torque interrupted, his scales flickering between nervous green and determined blue. Something that was hidden, deliberately. He walked forward, ignoring the gasps and murmurs from the assembly. When he reached the center of the floor, he placed the crystal on a pedestal next to Briggs. This is from the restricted section, he explained. The section even archive masters aren't supposed to access. It contains cross-references and authentication codes for all the extinction events attributed to humans. His 6 eyes blinked in sequence, and they don't match up. The crystal activated, projecting a complex web of data above their heads. If you analyze the actual evidence rather than the summary reports, Torque continued, growing more confident, you'll find inconsistencies. The energy signatures aren't identical, they've been altered to appear similar. The eyewitness descriptions vary wildly but were standardized in the official records. And most importantly, he tapped the crystal, bringing up a new display. The timing of many of these events overlaps. The same humans would have had to be in multiple places across the galaxy simultaneously. The chamber fell silent as the council members processed this information. What are you suggesting, Liaison Torque? Nor 7 finally asked, its holographic displays slowing to a crawl. War. Torque took a deep breath. I'm suggesting that someone has been systematically falsifying our historical records. Someone has been blaming humans for disasters they couldn't possibly have caused. But who would do such a thing? Krex demanded. And why? Briggs stepped forward, studying the projected data. Who maintains your archives? Who has the access and authority to alter historical records on this scale? The silence that followed was deafening. The archivists, someone finally whispered from the upper tiers. And that's when the lights went out. Part 5, The Revelation. In the sudden darkness, chaos erupted. Alien voices shouted in 100 languages, the translation software in Briggs's ear struggling to keep up. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the council chamber in an eerie red glow. Everyone remained calm. Nor 7's voice boomed from above. Security protocols are. It never finished the sentence. A high-pitched whine filled the chamber, and every piece of technology from the holographic displays to the translation devices suddenly died. What's happening? Admiral Zhang demanded, but Briggs barely heard him over the growing commotion. Movement caught her eye, figures emerging from hidden doors around the perimeter of the chamber. Tall, gray-skinned beings with elongated limbs and oversized craniums. Each carried what appeared to be a staff made of the same crystalline material as the archives. The archivists, Torque whispered beside her. I've never seen one in person before. No one has, came a new voice, smooth, cultured, and speaking perfect English without the need for translation. We prefer to work behind the scenes. The speaker stepped forward, another of the gray beings, but dressed more elaborately than the others. Its large, dark eyes fixed on Briggs with unsettling intensity. I am Curator Prime, it said, and you, Commander Valerie Briggs, have become a problem. How do you know my name? Briggs asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. And how are you speaking English? We know everything about your species. We've been monitoring your development for quite some time. The being's thin lips curved in what might have been a smile. As for your language, we are the archivists. Knowledge is our domain. Around the chamber, the other gray beings had positioned themselves strategically. Council members who tried to flee found their paths blocked. What is the meaning of this? Noor 7 demanded. The archivists serve the council, not the other way around. The Curator Prime tilted its head. An arrangement of convenience, nothing more. We have served our own purposes for millions of years. And what purposes are those? Briggs asked, her hand inching toward her sidearm. Order, stability, control. The Curator gestured with long, spindly fingers. The galaxy is chaotic by nature. Species rise, expand, and inevitably conflict with one another. We simply manage the process. By framing humans for mass extinction events, Zhang asked incredulously. Every narrative needs a villain, the Curator explained, as if discussing something as mundane as the weather. For millions of years, we've cultivated the myth of humanity, a terrible, destructive force that could appear anywhere, destroy anything, and vanish without a trace. The ultimate cautionary tale. But why us? Briggs demanded. Why humans specifically? Because you didn't exist, the Curator said simply. Or rather, you existed only on your isolated world, unaware of the broader galactic community. A perfect scapegoat, impossible to disprove, impossible to question. Until now. Its gaze hardened, until you inconveniently developed faster than light travel and forced us to accelerate our timetable. Murmurs spread through the assembly as understanding dawned. The invitation to join the council, Zhang realized. It wasn't diplomatic at all. You were going to eliminate us before we could expose your lies. Not eliminate, the Curator corrected. Assimilate. Your actual technological capabilities are primitive, but your resilience as a species is impressive. We intended to incorporate your biological distinctiveness into our own. That's incredibly creepy, Briggs muttered. The curator continued as if she hadn't spoken. But now that plan is compromised, now we must resort to more direct methods. It raised its staff, the crystal at its tip beginning to glow. We will rewrite this moment. When we are finished, humans will have come to the council, confessed their ancient crimes, and accepted their punishment. The narrative will be preserved. You can't just rewrite reality, Briggs protested. The curator's smile widened. Commander, what do you think we've been doing for the past 10 million years? As the glow from the staff intensified, Briggs did the only thing she could think of. She drew her sidearm and fired. The bullet struck the crystal staff, shattering it into 1,000 glittering fragments. The curator shrieked in apparent agony as the energy contained within backflashed, engulfing its gray form in crackling blue lightning. Around the chamber, the other archivists reacted with shock, their own staffs wavering. Their power comes from the crystals, Briggs shouted. Target the staffs. The human delegation, along with several council security forces who had finally arrived, opened fire. One by one, the crystal staffs shattered, each explosion weakening the archivists further. In the chaos, Torque scrambled to Briggs's side. The main archive. If they reach it, they can still alter the records. The understanding flashed between them. Together with several council guards, they fought their way out of the chamber and raced toward the archive room. They arrived just in time to see the curator prime blackened and limping but still very much alive, placing its hands on the central crystal formation. Stop, Briggs shouted, raising her weapon. The curator turned, its dark eyes now glowing with the same blue energy as the crystals. You cannot stop what has already been written, Commander. The story of humanity as the destroyer of worlds is millions of years old. It is woven into the very fabric of galactic history. Then we'll rewrite it, Briggs declared. The truth this time. She fired again, but the shot dissipated harmlessly against some kind of energy field surrounding the archivist. The curator laughed, a chilling sound like breaking glass. Your primitive weapons cannot harm me here, at the heart of our power. Here we are gods. No, came Torque's voice from behind her. Here you are just librarians with a god complex. Before anyone could react, Torque rushed forward, clutching the crystal he had taken from the council chamber. As he ran, he pressed it against his chest, his scales glowing with absorbed energy. Torque, no, Briggs shouted, but it was too late. The reptilian diplomat hurled himself at the curator, the energized crystal leading the way. When they collided, the resulting explosion threw Briggs and the others backward. When the smoke cleared, the central crystal formation was cracked but intact. The curator prime lay motionless on the floor. And Torque. I'm okay, came his weak voice from behind a fallen column. Mostly. As Briggs helped him up, the archive crystals began to glow with a new, clearer light. The false records were breaking down, revealing the truth beneath millions of years of carefully constructed lies. The truth about the archivists, their manipulations, and their ultimate goal, to control galactic development by creating fear of a boogeyman that never existed. Until now. Part 6, The Resolution. 3 weeks later, Briggs stood in the newly reconstituted council chamber, watching as representatives from across the galaxy filed in for the special session. The mood was somber, but determined, a civilization coming to terms with the fact that much of its recorded history was fabricated. Commander, Admiral Jean greeted her, taking his place beside her at the central podium. Ready to make history? The real kind this time. Before she could answer, Nor 7 descended from the upper tiers, its holographic displays subdued compared to their previous intensity. The council is prepared to begin, it announced. Today we formally welcome humanity to the galactic community, not as villains from our nightmares, but as equals. A polite applause spread through the assembly. Furthermore, Norse 7 continued, we extend our deepest apologies for the accusations leveled against your species. The archivist's deception was thorough. What happens to them now? Briggs asked. The surviving archivists have been contained, Norse 7 replied. Their technology is being studied, their power structures dismantled. The work of separating fact from fiction in our historical records will take generations, but it has begun. From a side entrance, Torque appeared, moving slowly with the aid of a hover support. His scales bore new patterned scars from the explosion that had saved them all. Liaison Torque, Norse 7 acknowledged. The Council recognizes your courage and has voted unanimously to elevate you to the position of primary archivist, the first of a new order that will guard our history with transparency, rather than deception. Torque's scales flushed with embarrassment. I was just trying to do the right thing. Sometimes that's all it takes, Briggs told him with a smile. The formal ceremony that followed was mercifully brief, treaties signed, hands and various other appendages, shaken, speeches given. By the end, humanity was officially part of the galactic community. As the assembly dispersed, Ambassador Krex approached Briggs, his skin a contemplative shade of blue. I owe you a personal apology, Commander, he said. I was particularly zealous in my accusations against your species. Water under the bridge, Briggs assured him. You were working with the information you had. Perhaps. But there's something else you should know. Krex glanced around, then lowered his voice. Not all the stories about humans were fabricated by the archivists. Briggs frowned. What do you mean? There are legends older than the archivists themselves about a species matching your description. A species with unique adaptability, unusual creativity, and a particular talent for, how do you say it? Thinking outside the container? Box, Briggs corrected automatically. Thinking outside the box. Yes, that. The point is, the archivists may have chosen humans as their scapegoat because of these ancient tales. Tales of beings who could solve problems in ways no other species considered. That sounds like a compliment. It is, Krex admitted, but it's also a warning. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Commander Briggs. More dangerous than you know. The archivists were not the only threat lurking in the shadows. Before Briggs could ask what he meant, Krex was called away by another diplomat. Later, as the human delegation prepared to return to the Tenacity, Torque caught up with Briggs in a corridor. I wanted to thank you, he said, for believing me, for helping expose the truth. I should be thanking you, Briggs replied. You risked everything. Torque's scales flickered in what she now recognized as his equivalent of a shrug. I've been assigned as permanent liaison to Earth. If you'll have me, that is. We'd be honored. Briggs smiled. But I have to warn you, if you thought the archivists were scary, wait until you try Earth cuisine. Torque made a sound that might have been laughter. I look forward to it. Though there is one thing that still concerns me. What's that? The Galactic graveyard records. We've confirmed most were fabricated, but some of the extinction events were real. Someone or something caused them. And if it wasn't the archivists, then there's another player in this game, Torque finished. One we haven't identified yet. Briggs considered this as they walked toward the docking bay. Well, whoever or whatever it is, they'll have to deal with humanity now. And we may not have reality-altering technology or time travel, but we're pretty good at solving problems when we put our minds to it. So I've noticed, Torque said dryly. Me. As they boarded the shuttle that would take them back to the Tenacity, Briggs couldn't help but smile at the irony. For millions of years, humans had been the galaxy's greatest villains, responsible for countless atrocities they knew nothing about. Now they might just end up being its saviors. In the vastness of the rewritten galactic archives, a new entry was taking shape. One that told the true story of humanity's first contact with alien civilization, and how they exposed a conspiracy spanning eons. The galactic graveyard would still have human names on its tombstones. But now, those names belonged to heroes, not monsters. And that, Briggs thought, was a story worth telling.